And welcome to another show of Don't Get This Wisted. I am Rob, along with my co-host, as always, Tina. How you doing, Tina?
I'm good. I'm ready for the weekend, Rob. I'm like so ready for this.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there for sure. So
I got big plans for this weekend, so I'm excited for that.
That's good.
Yeah, we're gonna go. My cousin and I are gonna go to Disneyland tomorrow. I'm taking the day off and ditching out on work and going to Disneyland. And then Saturday, you know how they put the luminaries in the water and they all go out at the same time. It's like a candle that floats on the water in a little.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna go do that on Saturday. And then Sunday is Mother's Day, so crazy weekend.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Correct.
What about
as you can see behind me, we have the on air going, so we're on air today.
That's right.
I don't know what I'm doing right now. I don't know if the kid's going to be in town or not. He might go see his mom. I'm not sure.
You got to come over.
And yeah, besides that, I don't know what I'm doing. I got to see. Anyway, we're going to do the show we were supposed to do last week because I went off on a tangent about my books. So this time we're really going to talk about basically what this podcast has done for us over the last 2 years. Then I said September of 2020. Is that what I said? Or 2021? 2021.
2021. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that
basically
is so crazy
how we've changed or how it's changed us. It's a wild thing what's happened over these last couple of years. Obviously going through the pandemic and all that stuff. Yeah, September 16th of 2021 was our first one.
Okay. We're almost there. We're almost at the 3-year mark.
We're almost at the 3-year mark. We're this year. It's funny though, because you look back on, I think podcasting in general, it's changed. And for us, like I said last week, it's very cathartic for me because I get to just kind of belt out how I'm feeling or what's making me mad or how society is absolutely bonkers and says dumb shit. So it's great that I get a chance to vent. Say things like that. Yeah, to vent. And that's very, very important, I think. Mostly for, just getting things off your chest sometimes. And look, do we have a ton of listeners? No. But do we have enough that I think that we're making a difference? Sure. And if people can feel like they can vent, even if it's just to the friends that they have, or get a hold of us and come on here and vent away, because we love that shit too. But I think it's changed me as a person. I get to be honest, and I think that there's not enough honesty out there these days. Lots of people like to hold things very close to their chest or just say it to therapists. So at least here I get to get it out and about. And look, it's got me in some trouble with people. I've said some things and gotten some text messages from several people that I either was incorrect with what I said, which I was at the time. I had someone text me that I'm holding on for something that I'm never going to get. And if I would just open up a little bit, they would be better for me, which I kind of giggled at.
Yeah, I don't get that.
But whatever. It's somebody from my past that was like, if you would have just, let me in your life, you'd be better.
If you would just be somebody else, you'd
than
be
someone
so much
else.
better.
And if you didn't like the girl down the street for so long, we would be together and happy. And I was like,
you got that.
Okay. Yeah, wow. I got that one. And I was like, But again, this is a person from my past that I haven't seen since I was in high school.
Oh, balls.
So they don't really know me. This is just somebody from my past that I happened to get in contact with again, just because I wanted to see what they were doing in life. That was it. And I don't even want to shit on that person because I don't think that that's right either. I mean, I think it's coming from a good place, but, feelings are a weird thing. So what this podcast has done is also bring that kind of stuff to the surface. People who know me and listen will come to me if I say something either out of line or out of context or whatever. And that comes with this. Mm-hmm. I think when you do something that anyone can listen to, you're going to have repercussions or fight back. Like in your case, you might have somebody that's close to your life that you're dating that might listen to this, and there's repercussions of that. And I think,
I've had that happen.
They come with that.
I've had that happen. Like that I shouldn't even say it because now I'm doing exactly what he said he didn't like. And that was putting stuff out there that maybe we talked about or maybe we did, and not leaving a space for that to be private and between the two of us. And I get that.
Right.
And I get that.
Me too.
But at the same time, it's like, whatever's going on in my life, I am learning from. And if I use it in a podcast, it's because that's what I'm going through. That's what I'm dealing with. But I do really understand the importance of keeping a relationship safe and secure and just between the two of us. I get that too. But
I totally do.
But there's also a lot of me that goes into this, and in dating me, there is a level of openness that I'm going to have about what I'm going through in my relationship, respectfully.
Sure.
So yeah, I did go through that. That kind of caught me off guard. And the first thing I thought was, I don't want to do this anymore. You know what I mean? Because who wants to feel like I don't want to feel like I can't say something. I don't want to feel like every time I do, I'm going to be wrong or in the wrong. But it didn't last very long. And, we all have to find our boundaries and work within those. And I'm not opposed to doing that. So if something were to be very serious, or if I was doing something that was really offensive, I would take a step back and do things differently for sure.
Absolutely. And we've talked about that before. Like assuming that anything ever would happen with my friend down the street, I would definitely, I think, have a very good long conversation of the boundaries she would like me to stay within, because I think that once you decide to be in something that's a relationship, right, a commitment, you have to keep things very closed off. There has to be some kind of wall, right? Say, okay, I can't say this or I can't say that. And I also think it would be like, okay, if we're talking about something, you'd have to say something like, it's not my current relationship. Right? Just to make sure. Look, because I also don't want to not do the podcast. I kind of agree with you. Like, you have to kind of, but I also wouldn't give up a relationship that I thought was worth, fighting for. So
but see, that's where you and I are balance. Wrong, because somebody that truly loves me would see the benefits of me doing this and would encourage me to do that for several reasons, not try to stop me. I think I'm at an age now where it's like, wait, this is not a time for you to stop me. Like, I'm good at what I do, and I'm honest with who I am. And I do things respectfully. I don't think I fly off the handle. I don't think I act like an idiot. I don't think I put people on blast. You're not hearing names come out of my mouth. And if I do, you edit that out, because we believe strongly that people should have their privacy. But in all honesty, I feel like I should be able to talk about anything that I'm going through respectfully. Just.
I agree. And look, my thing is you just have to understand, at the end, what's the end all? Do I want to come on here and talk my mind and speak my piece and do all that kind of stuff? Sure. But I also don't want it to be a detriment to something that may outlive the podcast, right? You know what I mean? So it's a balance. I like I said, I would respectfully sit down with my mate and go, look, I do this. What would you rather me not say? And if it ends up being not about my current relationship at all, so be it. I mean, look, we've lived long enough that we have a lot of stuff we can pull from. You know what I mean? Like we've already lived a life. We're not 20 where we're like, well, I've dated one person. It's like, no, we've been married. We've dated lots of crazy people. I
think you've dated more crazy than I have, though.
I've dated a couple.
Yeah.
I've dated a couple.
I think you got a bigger taste of that than I did.
Yeah. And my marriage wasn't crazy. And I will tell you for sure that our friend from high school, the one we know together, she wasn't crazy. She was just a good time.
She was just living her own life. I love that about her. I will stand up for her anytime and say, you leave her alone, because she's just living her. And there's nothing wrong with that. She's her own person for sure. Yeah.
Without a doubt. I mean, she was crazy at 17. And the stories that I heard,
crazy. She was wild. Like she was wild.
Yeah. That's what I meant. Because her crazy wasn't crazy. She was just a good old time. She was, unfortunately, she was repressed.
Yeah.
And when she got a taste of the other life, she went from like 6 to 12. Like she skipped 10. She was like, wow, who needs 10? We're going to turn that shit up.
Yeah. There was something very real about her that I just loved. Like she and I together, our energy together was insane. Like we definitely, we drew on each other's, personalities, and we were nuts together. Like we did stupid shit, but never mean. We weren't trying to be mean. We weren't hurting anybody. We were just, I don't know. We were just having fun and laughing at each other. And and I don't see anything wrong with that.
She was a good time. I mean, for me, it's a whole other thing. Cause obviously she was my girlfriend. So for me, it was a different thing, but she was always, the stories that I could tell you, and most of them, like the crazy shit that she did was bonkers. And awesome. Like for me, what was really great is that 20 years later, I got to see her again. And what was weird for me is how easy it was for us to be together. You know what I mean? Like it was almost like time didn't go by. And
I think in any relationship, if you get past all the hurt and the bullshit that stopped you from having a good relationship, if you could get past all that, you could go right back to being that person with that, your souls intermingle and souls connect, and we don't have to do anything. It just happens. And I think that she was one of those people that every time you see her, it's going to be the same person. Just like when I go back and forth to El Paso, I had two people say, this is Tina and she's always been this, that, and this. Like you could count on that with her. And it's true. You can count on me to be this, that, and this. Like it was funny to hear somebody else describe me because I don't normally hear that. So it's true. Like some people just they don't need to change. They're good in who they are and they're solid in who they are. And she was definitely one of them.
She'd be fun to get on this podcast.
If she could be honest.
She'd be a lot of fun.
She's still in a place where I don't think she could be completely honest. So
I think she could. We would just have to do what we've done with some of the other guests where we finagle her voice a little bit and do something, because I think that I think she'd be a good story talker because she has a lot of stories. I heard after she left, that time away was pretty wild time. So I don't know if I can get a hold of her or not, but if not, I think it would be a fun one. There's a couple of people I want to get on. I have another friend that I've talked to you about, and she's given me a bunch of show ideas. And one of the ones was when you date a murderer. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, I've dated a murderer. And she goes, well, more than one. And I was like, wait a second. Statistically, that is fucking bonkers, right? Like to be able to say that you've dated more than one. I'm going to try to get her on. I've asked her again, and she's a little busy. She's going back to school, and she's got kind of a funny voice. She has a Jennifer Tilly voice. So she's like, I don't want to come on there because people are going to say something like, we'll be fine. But I think that's the cool part about this pod too, is that we can bring friends on or bring people on and talk. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to reach out to the two girls that did the online dating one again and see if they've continued to try and see if we can have a part 3. Because I mean,
those are fun.
Because it's been a while. I don't know when the last one we did was.
It's been a long time.
But it's been a long time. It's been at least a year, at least.
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
So let's get back to what the topic of conversation should be today, because we keep getting sidetracked.
Well, we are though. We are talking about. We're not talking about change, what has changed for
you? How
we've
changed or how we've done things. We're definitely not getting on that subject the last 2 times.
Well, I think we're talking just the pod in general, right? Like what is it? What has it done? And like for me, like I said, I think it's just opened me up more. It's let me not be afraid to, for one, be vulnerable. And I think as a guy, that's an important thing, because most of us aren't. I'll talk about anything, and even things that I know aren't going to be good for me. Politically correct, but just good for me mentally. You know, we've talked about things or had subject matter on here that afterwards, the show we did with the girl who was the survivor, for me was very, very difficult. Just because I think as a man, you feel like you're representing a gender, and you shouldn't feel that way, because
I don't think anybody should feel that way, because that's a huge shoe to fill.
It is.
And if you leave that to me, I would leave so much wouldn't be going on. Like if you say for all women, there's shoes I couldn't even begin to fill. So I don't think that we should even think that way.
I know, but for me, it's hard, because I just think that, like, I hear stuff, even the online dating one, that made me feel not uncomfortable, just like, God, guys are pieces of shit. So, but see, I don't think I am. So, like, for me, that's not how it is, but it's made me think differently. That's the biggest thing about this. It's made me think differently about a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. How the media handles things, how people talk about things, how we're handcuffed with being politically correct, where, I like dark humor. Like, I made a joke today about Mother's Day. And the guy at my work, he lost his dad the same year as I lost my mom. And he's like, so what are you doing this weekend? I go, nothing on Sunday. Mom's dead. and he was like, got kind of quiet. And I was like, I mean, that's the truth. and I've talked about it on here before. My mom had a pretty good sense of humor. She's probably laughing like, you're right. But so having that kind of sense of humor and saying things on here, I'm sure that we've had listeners go, I can't believe he said that, which, we've probably lost listeners over things that have been said on here.
Too bad.
I know that we had a very, very good fan base until we did a show on abortion.
What?
And when we did a show on abortion, it dropped tremendously.
Interesting.
Yeah. So,
and I don't even think we were that out of like normal.
No,
what we said.
No,
so that's kind
not
of
really.
Funny.
Yeah. So that was one that kind of, not horribly bad, but there was a definite drop off when we did that. So, you think like, oh crap, like I didn't think we weren't that bad. And I think that, we have different, ways of looking at it, but it was like, that was in July of 2022. And I can tell you that it dropped probably 2 or 3%.
Interesting.
After that. Yeah. So,
get rid of the little bitches that can't take it.
I mean, look, I think that that's what drives me to different podcasts though. Look, it takes a lot to offend me. Right. So I like listening to other stuff that maybe I'm not part of. Like I believe in certain things but I'll listen to people who I don't think are the same politically, because how do you learn about people unless you do said things? You don't. You're just going to get stuck in the same lane or the same echo chamber, hearing the same stuff over and over again. So if you're really coming for me, listening to us, I hope you come here listening going, I don't agree with him all the time, but I still like listening to him. Because to me, that's important, because that's how I feel about this podcast for me. I'm going to tell you how I feel, but I'm definitely going to listen. Because we've had people on here that I don't necessarily agree with.
I agree with that.
I'm open to listening.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had subject matter that me and you, I mean, we agree on a lot of things. So like rarely do we not agree on stuff. But every blue moon, you'll go, oh no, that's not me. Like, okay, that's great. I think that's positive of what this medium and this podcast can do. It can let people go, yeah, I don't agree with her, but that doesn't mean I feel any different. I just go,
I don't need, see, that's the thing with me. I think that this is what has changed for me. I don't need people to agree with me anymore. I was definitely growing up somebody that had to please everybody. I was definitely trying to be a people pleaser. The women in my life expected that from me, and I wore the shoes. You know what I mean? So I really tried hard, but I realized that I was an epic failure at making everybody happy. And then when I finally decided, no, fuck that, I don't want to do that anymore. When is Tina going to get to be happy? I think that was going on when at the start of this podcast, because I was leaving my ex and trying to, I was so, at that time in my life, I had not told anybody for 9 months that I was even getting divorced. I had kept things so quiet. That's not me, to not have, some sort of support or whatever. But I didn't know how to start that conversation, and I didn't know how to tell that story. So for me, I kept really quiet, and the podcast helped me come back to being Tina, who can talk about everything, who isn't embarrassed to share, who likes people to learn from my mistakes. Because God, if you could go through life not making as many mistakes or the same ones that I did because you may have listened to me or you heard something that triggered you to do something different, hallelujah. Because, I've put myself in situations where I've physically hurt from the decisions that I've made, and emotionally got a big backhand from. So if somebody could learn from what I have gone through or what I talked about, or they could it helps them to just feel a little lighter in their own life. Like, I'm all for it. I'll take the lashings. Like, people have said they don't agree. I had one cousin say, I didn't want to listen to that podcast because I didn't want to know what you were up to. And so she just plain didn't listen, which was, I had to respect that. Like, okay, you're not going to listen. I didn't realize you were to begin with, but, because most of the people in my world don't tell me if they're listening or not. And then somebody somewhere down the line, probably who knows how many episodes in, will actually say something, and I'll be like, oh, you were listening. You didn't tell me. And that's
right.
that's been kind of like, why would you keep that a secret? Why wouldn't you just tell me you listen? And then when I hear that they're listening, I was like, ooh, what did they hear? Because who knows how many episodes they listened to, or what they listened to, or what did I say? What could have triggered somebody? You start to run all that. But then I'm like, well, too bad I already said it. And I don't listen to the podcast, so I can't even defend myself. So,
right.
And I don't want to. If I said it, I meant it at the time. Doesn't mean that I couldn't change my mind or have a different opinion. Or if you put the same story out there and you represent it differently than it was on the podcast, maybe I would have a different answer. So I always say, don't expect me to have the same answer. I have the same core values. I am who I am. That those don't change, but opinions change. You could think of so many things over the years that your opinions change with. Like, I remember back in the early 90s, I used to do massages on non-ambulatory AIDS patients, because these AIDS patients, the parents, the families were saying, I don't know how you got sick, but you're on your own. I don't like your lifestyle. I'm not going to be there for you. And these people were literally dying in hospitals, not being touched, because they were, everybody was gowned up and latex gloves and masks and everything. So at a time when HIV was really scary, I started up with this nonprofit organization, and it's called Heart Touch. And we were literally touching people without gloves and massaging them in places that they didn't have any lesions or anything. Like, we were safe and everything. But nonetheless, I was doing that. Now, over the years, I've heard, are you fucking crazy? Like, you would do something like that? You put yourself in harm's way. My mom used to cry every week when I would go and do these people's massages. But my opinion or my perception was, if I was in that situation, wouldn't I want somebody to be there for me? Wouldn't I want somebody to touch me? So it wasn't the fear of what could have or should have or would have happened wasn't there, because my perception was, I'm going to be okay because somebody needs to do this. And whoever's up there, I do believe in God. I'm like, whoever's up there, they will watch over me, and I'll be safe. I'll do the best I can to be as safe as I can in the situation. And I think that at that time, my mom flipped out. But looking at it 20 years later, when we talked about it, she said to me, she goes, you're my hero. And I said, why am I your hero? And she said, because you did what I was afraid of. So,
right.
Perception is definitely key to things. So I feel like if somebody has a problem with what I say, then they should walk in my shoes and look at it from that area. And then maybe I'll be sorry that I said something.
Yeah. I mean, look, all in all, perception is reality to the people who don't know us or see things from a certain point of view. Many of the truths that we lean into are all seen from a certain point of view.
Right.
Right. So,
even
you
how we
have
see
to kind
ourselves.
of step back. Well, yeah, I think a lot how we see ourselves. But I think that like this podcast has done a lot to, I mean, for one, it's shown me things I didn't know about you.
Really?
So, like, like things, when we did shows about your marriage that I had no clue, like how you were living. I just thought, yeah, you're just like me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's as far from the truth as you could be. But my perception is that's what it was.
Right.
So my reality seemed that. So when we, before we did a few of those shows, you were like, this is what was really going on. So when we went into that, and, I remember doing that show and you kind of going, hey, no one knows what happened during my marriage. People are going to hear this for the very first time. And, from my point of view, it was like a scary thing. I had, so not only did I record it, I listened to it again and for myself went, okay, like we may open up a can of worms for you that you weren't ready for.
We did. And I wasn't. And you just got to roll with the punches. It's ultimately, I don't live a life that I don't want to live in. So, if somebody's got a problem with how I live my life or what I did, then they don't need to be in my world. I don't push anything on anybody else. I'm probably the most like, hey, live your own life sort of person that I've ever met. Like, I encourage people to do whatever it is they're going to do. No matter what I think about it, I always tell them, yeah, go ahead and do that. And if it's a mistake, make it a big fucking mistake so you learn whatever you need to learn. That's how I am. So, when people had a problem hearing those things, and I think about it, and even like it scares me now when you say that, because I forgot that we even had that show, because I push things out of my head when I don't want to deal with it also. So looking back,
right.
maybe that wasn't the best thing to do, or maybe, I don't know. Does it matter? Does it really matter if it already happened and everybody survived? And
exactly. And I think that's kind of the thing about this show.
Yeah.
When you're ready to say something, you can.
Yeah.
And look, we're all going to say something on here that we might be judged for. That's just the nature of the beast for people that we know who listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I do my best. And I say that with, with a small underline. I do my best to be as honest as I can without hurting anyone's feelings. I do my best. And I really do.
I do believe that you're telling the truth even now, because I know the backstory. So I know that you're exactly like that. And I am too. We're not putting people on blast. We're not here doing that. We're just trying to speak our truth, do our own thing. And if somebody doesn't want to listen to it, like, you don't have to. That's the great thing about this. You're not going to see commercials of us on TV. You're not going to, run into us everywhere you go. Like, you don't have to worry about it.
And I think the people in our lives that hear this, I think at least can go, they're honest.
Nah, or not.
And to me, I mean, to me, that's what I want. I want someone to go, yeah, at least he's honest. He says some shit that I don't want to hear or I didn't want to hear, but at least he's honest and he's going to tell it like it is.
Yeah. I recently,
without blasting somebody.
Exactly. I recently discovered something about myself that I did not realize. I did not know what unconditional love was until just recently. Like in the last, like even when I started doing the podcast, I didn't know what that was, to love like that or to be loved like that. And what I've come up with is that unconditional love means you're going to love a person and have no expectations of them. You're going to love them for who they are completely and totally, for the relationship that you have with them. And I recently got a example of that. My ex and I are still really good friends. I still house sit for him. We're in contact. We do lunch occasionally. We are not sexually active. We are not doing any. We're not trying to go backwards. We're not trying to do any of that. But we're very good friends. And we were talking the other day, and I told him, I said, you know what's funny is I still love you. You're still somebody that I hold in very high regard. You're somebody that I feel like, will be in my corner if the shit goes down, like you will. I mean, there's things that in our relationship that were definitely not good, and they won't ever be, and they're just not something that we managed to get together. But I realize in being his friend that I do love him. We managed to not fight during our divorce, so we didn't have to completely crash everything. But it's on an unconditional scale. Like, I love him for the person that he was for me, and he is to me. And I'm okay that he's not what I would consider perfect for me. Like, it doesn't have to be like that, but that I was able to get to a place where I could just appreciate him and love him and hold him in high regard and have absolutely no expectations. And I did not realize that is what unconditional love actually is. And nor did I know that I could even get to that place where I could let all the bullshit go and just, this is my people sort of, outlook. And I just recently realized that I finally, in my own heart, got to a place where I have unconditional love. And then once I realized what it was, I could look at it and see how I have it towards other people in my life. And because most of the time we love people for what they are to us, or what they could do for us, or what they, could give us, not just adore the person that they are because of them being who they are, however broken or perfect, or however you see it. Like, I didn't know that I could do that. And I just recently realized that I do. So that was kind of a cool.
Yeah. I think that walks hand in hand, right? Conditional. A lot of people love with conditions.
For sure. I think that's the majority.
Because
you got to really be vulnerable to unconditionally love somebody. Really vulnerable.
You have to understand them. You have to understand the people at their lowest and go, I still love them for being who they are.
Yeah.
And being able to say it. And I think that's what this podcast does as well. It gives us the outlet to say, look, I love this person. Even at their lowest, they're broken. They don't like themselves, whatever. And I might not understand their situation completely, but I love them either way. And I'll always be here for them. And I think that being able to say things like that are big. I said a lot of things about my mom.
Yeah.
while she was alive, and she listened. And I think that probably helped her, that because we'd said things about my mom, and I would say, things about my relationship with her that during the good and the bad. And I think for her, I gave her, we lived far away. And I think it gave my mom a relationship with me.
Absolutely.
That she could have without having to pry into anything, because I was so open about things that she got to hear.
She got to hear you. Yeah. Because she got to hear me with you for 100 years. Like, really, I don't remember. I never met her. That's how long you have not lived with her. So I think it was good that she was able to hear your perspective as an adult. Like, because how many parents really get the adult perspective of their child? Not too many. Yeah.
She even said that to me.
Yeah.
She was like, I didn't. We would talk about things after she would listen.
I love that.
And she was like, I didn't know this about you. I didn't know this about you.
Yeah.
And you do this and you didn't do this. And, the girl down the street. And is that still this? And So like she got to hear a much broader,
she got the friend version instead of the son version of you through listening to the podcast.
Yeah, she got to see me as a different person and not have to worry about me being a little boy. She didn't. So I'm really glad that she got to experience that side of me and let me just rant and be open, and she got to experience her son in a different view.
Yeah.
Very unfiltered.
Yeah.
Because we generally filter ourselves around our parents, right? Because we want to look good or we want them not to worry, that kind of thing. So my mom definitely got a darker side of the moon, right? She got to see what was on the shady side of the moon where like she didn't know, and she would come back to me with things about like, oh, I didn't know about this. And is everything okay? Are you doing okay because of this? Or, oh, do you still talk to her? Yeah.
I love that you got that with her, because I think that more than anything, you needed that. You needed to have that closeness with your mom. And I'm glad that this facilitated that.
It did. It definitely did. And I'm glad she got to experience. She said she had a little, she listened on a Amazon device. I don't want to say it because it'll talk to me, but I bought her a little thing that she could plug in and charge it, and she could take it in the backyard. She said she would sit out on her little deck and listen to us. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So for me, I'm glad she got to experience her son in a different way. So that's like another big part of this podcast, where the people that I really care about, with the exception of a couple of friends that I don't even know if they've ever listened, they know about it. But the people that are very close to me, like, my mom, the girl down the street, a couple of other very close friends that do listen, that get something from it. I'm glad, because they get to see me a little more raw. And I think that the more raw we are, at least people understand who we are, because there's so many of us that wear a mask no matter what, and they're afraid to be themselves.
Look at what I just said about having unconditional love for an ex of mine, that I figured this out after the fact. This isn't going to be conducive for dating. I realized as soon as I said that, like, this could piss off anybody that I date in the future. But, at the same time, it could be said like this. If you realize that I've got that much love, that I could love after it's all said and done and blown up, and still treat you as a valuable human being, there's something to be said for that. And I don't think that how many times do you get to say that to somebody, that I did something, or and explain your story and tell them what's going on, and have them hear you for what it is that you're going through. I think that's kind of cool with this.
And like I said, it's raw and unfiltered, because we just say it. And I think that a lot of people who listen to this show don't realize that there's really no editing out of things.
No, I've asked you and you won't even do it.
Yeah, I will edit out names if we mess up. And I think, to be fair, I think it's mostly you. I've done it a couple of times. You've said my son's name multiple times.
I know, I can't help it.
And then you said my friend down the street's name, I think, a couple of times. But we're really good. But those are the things where
intentionally, it's just people have names. No. You're used to calling them,
Well, because we're talking.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing about this show, is that we're literally just talking to each other. And again, if you knew how much editing was really done on the show, it's not very much. I make our voices look and sound good, and I make sure background noise, as much as I can, I get out of it. Besides that, I rarely edit anything out. Maybe a cough or two if it's something that's very, very bad.
I'm dying. It's always me.
Yeah, but But I like that about this. I always wanted it to be a raw show.
Yeah.
Something that people went, oh, yeah, it's two friends sitting in the same room together that are just bullshitting.
Mm-hmm.
And multiple times, that's what my friends have told me.
You know what's funny? Like, I get all the time that you guys have dated. I'm like, no, never. It was never even a thought. It was never anything that happened. I catch that more than, like, if somebody's going to ask me something about the podcast, that's one of the first things that we ask. So how long did you guys date for? And I'm like, hear me. You can be friends with the opposite sex and never have crossed any lines. Like, and if you can't do that, you need to fix yourself. But I've been able to manage that in several relationships, and I'm good with my friends, and I don't want to defend myself or my honor or I'm like, how many times we've said this on the show for like ever, and I still always get those.
2 years.
Yeah. And when you're dating, girls don't like me. They're jealous. I know they are. I could feel it. They're like putting their boundaries up like, hey, he is my guy. I'm like, you can have him. You can have him.
I think, yeah. I mean, I can't say about the girl down the street because we don't date, but I don't think so. I think she likes you a lot because you're so open.
Oh, cool.
She's even said like, oh, yeah, I wish I could be like Tina in, this way and this way because you are so open about stuff. I know that I think other people, yes.
Like I felt like I've been kind of squeezed out in some, like they're trying. I'm like, oh, come on, stop this. You won't hear from me until next week when we have to do the podcast. I promise you, we do not
right.
Like it's funny. So that I've been asked that so many times that, it's kind of funny. I just like, I'm at the point now where I kind of roll my eyes and shake my head. I'm like, we're going to have this conversation again.
Right.
So that's been.
I think the fun part of this though is the misconception is that we're not in the same room.
Yeah, we're in different cities.
Because
completely.
I've had so many people that.
Yes.
Well,
I have to.
On a good day, we're at least an hour.
Yeah.
On a bad day, we're several hours from each other.
I have a friend that lives out not far from you, and on a given, like on a Friday afternoon, it has taken me 2.5 hours to get there. So we do not live close. We do not, and we live traffic. There's like straight traffic. Yeah. So it's kind of funny how people have said that to me as well.
Before I lived where I lived in Camarillo, and I would come out and visit my friend down the street. And at the time, I would come out here like after work or whatever. I would literally drive 2 hours to see her for maybe 20 minutes. So,
that's
when I like somebody, I go goo goo.
You too.
And again, like I've talked her up to you a lot. She's a great person, and when I get to spend more time with her, it's amazing. Now that we live close, although I still don't see her very often, when I do, it's great because there's no rush and there's no relationship in the way, and there's no
restraints by trying to get to each other either.
And I'm not worried about getting stabbed or shot by anybody. That kind of makes it nice. Yeah. But I think that there's things in this that are great where people are like, you guys are in the same room, right? Yeah. I've literally had people going, and for me, which is kind of nice because it means that the editing's really good, that we sound like we're in the same room.
We've only been in the same room twice, maybe 3 times. It was when a couple of guests were with us.
3 times, I think.
And then one time where I was already out your way and I didn't have my stuff, so I had to go to you and do it at your house. Those only times.
Yeah. So
in 3 years,
we've done it once here. And then I know we did 2 at your place.
That's what I want to say, because we had people on with us.
It wasn't even your. Yeah, I don't even. And it wasn't your place. You were house sitting.
Not anymore.
So that's also the other thing. Right. So I believe that, you know, there's something about this podcast that's changed me as a person. And I think for the best. It's made me a different person. It's made me way better at communicating. And it's made me really look at my life differently and be not afraid to say how I feel about things. And that means in person and or on here.
Yeah. For me, I find it a little bit amusing because I don't normally stick around judgmental people. Like if I know they're judgy, I will not tell them anything. I will not go there, and I don't hang out with them. So I hang out with people that don't judge me, or if they do, they'll laugh and they'll do it right to my face. I'm okay with that. Like my friends, they'll tell me you're a freaking idiot. And at the time, I can't even say they're wrong, because there are moments where I am like that. But I still worry. I still wince about people coming to me and saying something that I said on the podcast that they don't agree with, and it causing a problem. Now, if it's just they don't agree with me and they want to tell me their views, I'm totally cool with that. We're all different. We all go through things. Mm-hmm. But I put myself out here to hopefully better somebody else, because I realize there's some people that are really hurting and they just need somebody to say, no, that's bullshit. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't put yourself in harm's way. You know, and I've had people call me afterward. They've listened to the podcast and say, you know, I realized that I was doing something that you were like, what the fuck is your problem? Because I've been there before on this podcast, and they've come to me and said, you weren't talking about me because you didn't even know I was going through this, but thank you for saying something and just being the voice of reason. And Lord knows I am not anybody's moral compass. I don't want to be. Like, I'm the first one to say fuck things up and see what happens, because I've done it myself and I learned from it. So I'm not opposed to making mistakes. But if you're not living authentically to yourself, and you're not putting yourself out there and trying to like be happy, like I think everybody's goal should be happy, not be miserable, not be judged, not be prisoned, you know, because we've got a lot of people going through a lot of stuff and they're really struggling. And I think to myself, I always struggle. In my head, I don't have things together. I struggle every day. But people come to me to hear what I have to say, knowing that I'm the hot mess that I am. But I think because I'm real and I'm not trying to, I'm like, let's figure this out. Let's not be different. Let's not try to hide it. Let's figure out how I'm going to get through this. And there's no grace. There's no grace in how I'm doing this. Like we're struggling every day. But you know what? I have chosen to live a life that's happy. And I've chosen to if I'm not happy, I'm going to do whatever I got to do to fix that, because we should find a way to get through the bad, even as hard as life could be. We should still find the funny in it, because there's so much that we should be learning and going through and not being afraid of. And that's kind of where I'm at with this thing. I've gotten to the point where you want to know. If you want to know, ask me. I'm not going to go out and tell you everything. That's just crazy pants. Like, not everybody's ready for all that I could talk about. But if somebody were to, if like you say, hey, we should do it on this subject, I'm like, cool, I could talk about that. You may not want to hear it, but you're going to hear what I've been through and how I dealt with it.
Exactly. And I think that's the part about this show, right? We come up with lots of different subjects. I mean, and again, like, we talk about relationships a lot because there's things that we're involved in. Yeah. But I think that someone who's listening to this show can at least go, hey, these two are like crazy honest. Maybe if I have someone close to me, I can tell them what's going on. Yeah. And to me, that's the biggest thing.
I think everybody should live their truth.
Have an out. You have to have that. Mm-hmm. For sure. Oh, without a doubt. Look, I've said some things on here that I'm sure pucker buttholes, or they go, why did you say that? Like, and like I said, I'm lucky. My friend down the street, I am going to go out on a limb and say that she's the only one who listens to it that knows. So there's not a lot going on there. But on the flip side of that, I've said things about my mom, my brother, my other brother, my son, everyone. My life's pretty open on here because someone needs to understand that they're not alone, and I need to vent sometimes.
So
to me, it's been a very healthy experience.
Yeah. My closest people still have not even listened to it. My brother hasn't, my dad hasn't, my ex hasn't. Like anybody that I have talked about, other than friends, because friends will say, hey, I heard, and you were talking about me. And I'm like, oh, I was. But they loved what I said, because I always try to say something like, my friends are the coolest. So I'm not going to be talking shit about them. So when they hear what I'm saying, they're like, oh, I liked that. So, but it's funny how my closest people trust me enough that they don't even listen. There's something to be said for that too.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say my son's never listened. I'm pretty positive. Obviously, like my dad wouldn't. My dad, that's just not his thing. And I think my mom did, again, just to be close to me when she knows she couldn't.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot to it. And look, I'm glad. If any of my friends do listen to this, I'd love to hear more feedback, just because,
I'd like to know who listens to it.
We need that as well.
People are listening and not telling me what the hell's going on there. But then when I hear it, I'm like, ooh, did I want to know that you were listening?
Right. I know that certain people are listening because I can look at the analytics, but I don't know who. I just know like a ballpark. It'll tell me like Iowa. Like, oh, okay, well, someone in Iowa, and I'm pretty sure I know, because I only know a certain amount of people in Iowa.
Right.
So there's something to be said about that as well, or Nebraska. Like but then there's certain ones that come up. I'm like, I have no clue. Like we had one in Germany. I don't know anyone in Germany. So
I do.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's that person.
I don't know. And we live in the day of having VPNs, which is like a virtual IP address. So that person who says they're in Germany really is in, North Carolina.
Right. Could be.
It could be anywhere. So, yeah. Because I know I have a friend who lives in South Carolina, and he's not real keen on anyone knowing where he's at. So when he surfs the net, he surfs on a VPN, so they don't know. And I think he told me like, they think I'm in, India or Singapore or something like that.
Tell him to do one that's in kind of funny. That's in Delaware, because we need that. We need that state.
Yeah, we need Maine.
Maine.
We need Maine. I think we need
Wyoming.
We need Maine. I think we do need Wyoming, and I think one other one. I think you're right, Delaware, something like that. Yeah. All right. Well, we're running out of time here, and I'm hungry. So
with you.
Hey, make sure you share this with all your friends. Copy the link. I'm going to start sending out Spotify links. So if you follow us on the social media, on Facebook and Instagram and X, you can get the Spotify link. Or if you have Apple Podcasts, go to there and type in Don't Get This Wisted and listen to us on there. And again, always share it. It's important. If you want to write like a cool review on any of those, you can. It helps us get the word out. Anything else, Tina?
No, just I don't know. I think on this podcast, I've learned more than anything is not to apologize for being who I am. I'm not perfect. I don't want to be perfect, but I'm a pretty damn good person. And if I'm encouraging anything, I hope it's for people to just be more of who they are and start being authentic, so you could have a life that means more to you. And that's what I'm trying to do. Not that every day is my best day, but I just feel like if we all start being real with each other, then we could put down the facade that we have and start living a very honest and open and different life where people don't need to be perfect to be somebody that you hold on to.
Yep. I'm going to leave it at that. Be happy, or at least try. It's an opinion show, so don't get it twisted. Keep coming back every Wednesday. For my co-host Tina, I'm Rob. We'll see you in a week. Bye.
See ya.